Beyond loading and executing content, the Vortex Player actually has a number of tools that can be used to configure how we want the content to be presented, or to be able to take control of some aspects of the simulation. We also have tools to do things like record and playback and analyze performance. So let's take a quick look at these by Alt-tabbing to the console window. Now in here I'll see the browser tab that we saw earlier, where we can select which content we want to load within the player. Afterwards, we have the configuration tab where we can activate or deactivate configurations. Of course, this is something that can only be done when the simulation is not running. So here, if I want to activate one of the different configurations, like changing the initial position of the forklift, I would have to go to the browser tab, hit stop. That keeps the content loaded but stops running it. And then I can go under configuration and activate my forklift position. Now I already see that I changed my view of the roof of this building, and so now if I go back and run, I'll see that I'm going to be back in the driver's seat but in a different place in the warehouse. So that is the modification that this configuration of the scene applied to the mechanism. We then have the role and seat tab. So if you have multiple roles defined within your simulation, you could go and switch between these different roles dynamically here within the player application. Then we have the keyframe tab. Keyframes are a way of saving the state of the Vortex simulation at a given point in time. Then you can restore or reload that keyframe and be able to restart the simulation with all of the elements as they were when you saved that keyframe. We also have the record and playback tab. That is a tool that can let us do a complete recording of the simulation and then play it back exactly as it occurred. So you can see that keyframes are to be able to create snapshots in time and then be able to restart a new life simulation from that snapshot, whereas the record and playback tool is going to be able to let us get a full recording of an entire session and then play it back for analysis. The next tab over is network processes. That is a tab that lets us see that we have all of our different applications. In this case, we have the master application and the slave application that are communicating with each other. We also have a warnings and error tab that's available. Now that's for this window of the Vortex Player. That being said, there are other windows, and so as I go in here, I'll see that I have a slave window. So that's attached to the actual visual screen, the visual window that we're seeing here that's rendering the simulation. In the first tab of this window, we can see the content debugger. And so if we enable debugger, we're going to see information about the simulation. So that's going to present us with all of the different elements that we had inside of the editor, and we can go in and inspect any of these items. So we can see current values as the simulation is running. Now you should note that once you have inspected the items of interest to you, you should disable the debugger so that it no longer eats up some of your performance on the simulation while it's running. The profiler tool is another element that we can use to be able to see the timing of how long it takes to run the simulation. So here, if I go and enable the tree and look at my timings, I'll be able to see, for example, how long is my graphics rendering versus how long is user input taking to execute. How long is the dynamics taking to run? So if I open up various sections, I'm really going to get a lot of data about how the application is currently running. So when you're looking at troubleshooting performance issues, this is a great tool to be able to figure out what's happening within Vortex. We also have similar tabs to what we saw before, network processes, and then network data is something we can use to analyze some of the traffic that we're getting on the network between the dynamics engine and the visual engine. Now once we're done running here, we can just go in and close this executable and everything is going to close up on screen. Now I should note here that if you're looking to run this without a user interface, there are actually a number of command line parameters that can be used with the player to be able to launch this in a more deployed environment and have everything automatically start up, load up your content, execute it, And these are things that are all covered as part of the Vortex documentation.